Electricity Minister Kgosientsho Ramokgopa has been touring Eskom's power stations this last week or so, and the roadshow continues tomorrow. While he's been busy trying to get a handle on why blackouts persist, businesses have been mobilizing themselves for alternative sources of energy. Volker von Widdern from Riskonet says they're urging businesses in the same location to collaborate in developing their own sources of power generation. He joins us now virtually from here in Johannesburg for more on that. Volker, thank you so much for your time. Before we speak about what you're encouraging businesses to do, just your reaction in the movements that we've seen this newly appointed electricity minister make in the first week and a half or so of his appointment. Obviously, from an optics point of view, pardon the overused phrase, he's needed to put the best foot forward, and he's hit the ground running and speaking quite openly and transparently with the media. I suppose this would be welcomed by people such as yourself, and businesses have been struggling, but now it's in the delivery of what he's promising, I suppose.
Yes, good afternoon, and it's a pleasure to be with you and your viewers. Yeah, of course, it's a benefit to have someone with the additional eye on what needs to be done. I think we must credit plans that were commenced a year or two ago and that are coming through, or previous maintenance programs where units are being returned to operation now. And of course, 1 or 2 weeks of visiting plants doesn't actually fix the maintenance, but may prioritize or organize future maintenance or investments in a certain way. So one hopes that there are benefits that will come through in the future. So the benefits now were certainly as a result of plans that were incepted many months ago. Now, but having said that, the ministers also said that there will be trouble in winter. There'll be trouble in winter because there's a shortage of about 5,000 megawatts based on normal usage and capacity. So that won't be fixed in a round of visits. Significant changes are needed going forward.
We've been speaking to businesses in all types of sectors, big business, small and medium enterprises in all parts of the country, especially over the last few months as these power blackouts have really been ramped out. And you really do get the sense over the last while that businesses have decided, you know what, this is on us now. We cannot wait for government to get their ducks in a row. If we do, we probably will go the way of so many businesses that have had to close their doors. What are you seeing in terms of how businesses have taken it upon themselves to try and ensure that they have access to the power that they need to operate and indeed grow their business?
Well, I think we've seen some very good examples, but let's call them rare, and so many opportunities which are not yet capitalized on, which is why we encourage this. Bear in mind, we talk from a point of strategic risk management, and the major risks, as we know, are load shedding. They're on the top of every risk register. But the other factor is increasing cost. So we've got an 18% approved increase this year and a 12% approved increase next year. And these increases will continue at least 10 to 12% for the next 5 years, which means rates will at least double over the next 5 years. If we look at that issue and you say, well, how are businesses then set up to collaborate? We don't think the strategic risk and opportunities being dealt with sufficiently. Now, there are a couple of these examples, but let me give you a simple one. You could have an office block standing next to a hotel. The hotel needs power at dinner time when the kitchens are running, and the office block is empty. It's actually a perfect hedge for each other. If they then run energy generation schemes such as storage of water, the office block can empty its water tank with the hotel at 4 to 6 to 8 p.m. and supply energy to the hotel and vice versa as each other's needs develop. So that kind of collaboration should be thought about in the future, not only because there may or may not be load shedding, and that's one of the difficulties of South Africa's risk management. We are hoping that load shedding gets better. We're not strategically planning for a level of self-generation that will keep us immunized from load shedding, because it will actually be an issue for the next 5 or 10 years.
The example that you've given, however, is also encouraging businesses to think rather creatively and outside of the box. Do you think enough of our businesses are doing that as yet?
No, we don't think so, because up to now, a business would have thought of their own needs and said, okay, let's say we need a generator of 500 megawatts, whatever it is. How will it pay its way? What's the cost? Will we save enough on electricity? The question that should also be asked is, what is the level of power we should be generating to maximize our production, not minimize it, not to just get away with half of a kitchen or half of the lifts or half of the plugs working, because that's actually the problem that's being solved now, is how can we minimize the disruptive impact? Rather than saying, I've got a small factory or this or that, what if I ran my factory at 100%? How much power would I need? And if you then collaborate and you find a network of your own environment, your industrial hub or your commercial hub, and you find a way of extending your productive hours into the load shedding period because you've built a power sharing club with your neighbors, then your factory is going to operate much better. Then we are solving the strategic issue that your factory is underutilized because of load shedding. So we're saying that there's a better way of approaching strategic risks by looking at this collaborative nature and elevating the level of power solution that can be done by business in a collaborative way. And of course, the Competition Commission has then said an exemption is coming through for businesses that collaborate in this way. So it's wonderful to use that opportunity.
The one benefit of this electricity crisis is that so many of us have had to become far more educated about electricity generation in South Africa. And I'm sure you'd agree from a risk avoidance point of view that education is power for so many businesses who perhaps started a business and didn't think that they needed to be an expert in electricity. You plug a machine in and hey presto, your product is being made. But now that's easier said than done. How important do you think it is for all kinds of businesses to equip themselves with the information they need to know what it will take to keep their own businesses' lights on?
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. The thing is that we've made sort of standardized solutions. So let's say I'm a small business and I run a pizza shop in a small regional shopping center and I don't have full access to the generator. What are the other ways of solving that risk? And that's again how we approach it, saying, well, imagine if we searched more widely. Imagine if we could get power off the roofs of the neighboring areas, the suburban areas around us. So again, it's a form of collaboration, but now it's with the private sector collaborating with the regional shopping center, and they're sending the power off the roof of houses, because in the daytime, the solar power is actually wasted in a house because a house doesn't need power during the day. It needs it at night. So solar power can be generated on a house during the day and sent to a shopping center. Now, that kind of information can be shared. Power will become much more virtual, and you can then collaborate or participate in these hubs that are going to develop as regional grids. So I think the knowledge of that, and that will spread the demand, that will spread the inquiry for it, and the way in which we share our power across multiple platforms will then become a very important element of information and awareness in the future.
Before I let you go, Volker, because we are running out of time, you did mention earlier that one of the key factors that you are advising your clients on, it seems that in South Africa, the key risk in any business now involves the lack of electricity, as it were. How are you taking the hand of your clients and walking through with them what risks they would potentially face if they don't ensure that they have a constant access or the access that they need to keep their businesses running? And how much has that changed the way you do your business going forward?
I think the bottom line is scenario planning. We think that there's an inadequate level of scenario planning because there's a hope of improved load shedding and the rest. And scenario planning has got to be done from the mitigation of the downside, as well as thinking what you will do to achieve the best upside. And when you're looking for the best upside, you often find ways of saying, wow, if I combine this generator with this battery, with this neighboring opportunity, or change my production cycle, we would be all better off in a certain way. So working through those situations rather than letting the tail wag the dog, in a sense. So power load shedding happens, and the schedule changes. And then you say, oh, my goodness, the schedule changed. I have to shut my factory. That shows that you can't run your business in that way. In a scenario planning environment, you're saying, I want to run my factory at least at an 80% capacity level under the following circumstances. What am I going to do about it? And that level of scenario planning and scheduling to achieve minimum uptimes and efficiency times and output levels is very valuable, and we haven't seen enough of it in terms of a risk management approach up to now.
Fascinating stuff. Thank you so much for your insight. That's Volker von Widdern of Riskonet joining us virtually from here in Johannesburg.